We are very glad and honored today to have Jim Branch here today. He's a son of Justice Joseph Branch. If you would stand, Jim, so everybody could see who you are. And we thank you for attending today. Next, I would like to introduce John Silverstein, who will be introducing our special guests and speakers.
Thank you, Terry. Each year, the Professionalism Award Committee selects a member of the Wake County Bar Association whose ethics, integrity, and service to clients, the community, and the bar mirror the standards set by the late Joseph Branch, former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. With the able assistance of Mel Wright, the Executive Director of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism, I would like to introduce the 2004 winner of the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award. Mel?
Mr. Duvall?
Yeah?
John Franklin.
Thank goodness. You're already late for court. You've had this client waiting over an hour for the appointment that you forgot. You've had this great referral.
Don't talk to me like that in front of clients.
Don't you feel well?
Don't talk to me like that in front of clients. And in terms of feeling well, if you want to make me feel better, get me an aspirin. I've got a headache.
Smells like a hangover to me.
Hangover?
Well, Mr. Duvall, glad you could join us. If I'm reading that clock correctly back there, you're about 1 hour late.
I'm sorry.
Sorry's not good enough, Mr. Duvall. Perhaps later in the day you'd like to explain to the good folks here why your time is so much more precious than anyone else's.
No, Your Honor, I didn't mean anything by it.
Jim, it's good to see you.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you.
How Marie and the children?
Your Honor, everybody's doing fine. How's your family doing? They're doing just great. And the little one?
Oh, he's growing every day.
Growing like a weed.
Yes, indeed he is.
That is
you
right.
know it might.
Through here, you and I will have a chance to play a round of golf.
Your Honor, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have a 2 o'clock tea time and I think we can probably make it. We would go ahead and...
Your Honor, this motion involves some intricate points of law. I've got a memorandum in cases I'd like for the court to look at.
Mr. Duvall, the day that I need intricate points of law illuminated by you is the day I'll need my head chopped off. If you want me to consider any authorities, why didn't you have them here yesterday?
Your Honor, the case wasn't on for hearing until today.
Well, do you expect me to be able to prepare on a moment's notice? Perhaps you do.
Your Honor, a lawyer appealed a case last week when another judge took a similar position.
You shut up. I'll decide how the law's dispensed here. I ought to throw you and the bailiff out for letting this ambulance chaser in here an hour late.
Your Honor, she's right. I've got to have the opportunity to present my case. You can't do this without letting me present my case. That's unfair.
Sit down, Mr. Duvall. Sit down, Mr. Duvall. Sit down, Mr. Duvall.
We have just witnessed what I hope is an exaggeration of a bad day for an unprofessional lawyer and judge. In an effort to rekindle...
Thank you, Mel. The role of Mr. Duvall was ably portrayed by our 2004 Professionalism Award winner, not Mr. Duvall, but Ed Gaskins. Now would you please stand, Mr. Gaskins? In fact, Ed was so good in this video that Mel tells me the director of the video has made him an offer to be a professional actor. And by the way, if you have not seen the video, it is an excellent video that was done with the help of this Bar Association's Professionalism Support Initiative, and I'm sure Mel would be glad to speak with you if you'd like to have opportunities to present it or to view it yourself. Before we see a different side of Ed from Doug Brocker and Hugh Stevens, I would like to introduce some special guests who are here to celebrate this award with Ed. As I introduce you, would you please stand? First, we have Ed's wife, Ann. We have his parents, E.D. Gaskins Sr. and Arlie Gaskins. Ed's brother, Greg Gaskins. His daughter, Meredith Bell. And longtime friend and wife of Hugh Stevens, Marilyn Stevens. Nancy Penny, who's the Everett Gaskins, Hancock, and Stevens administrator. Martha Kelly, who's Ed's administrative assistant. Aaron White, Ed's paralegal. Christy Curtis, who's also a paralegal and Ed's cousin. And Kippy Curtis, also Ed's cousin. And Erica Teagarden, who is a former summer clerk. Let's give them all a round of applause. We also have members of Ed's firm here, and I would like to ask you to please stand as a group so that we can recognize you, all of the partners in Ed's firm. Thank you. The Wake County Bar Association's Professionalism Award has special significance because it includes the name of Joseph Branch, whose qualities and demeanor were synonymous with the term professionalism. We have been privileged to have his son, Jim Branch, attend this luncheon each November to help us honor his father's legacy to the legal profession and to our bar through the presentation of the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award. This year, we were supposed to have the special privilege of Jim bringing his son, another Joe Branch, to the meeting, but he had to succumb to a higher authority. He has a test today. But Jim, you're put on notice. He's got to come next year. Now it is time to hear from Doug Brocker and Hugh Stevens. Doug has worked closely with Ed on our Professionalism Support Initiative. He is a graduate of the University of Rochester and the University of North Carolina School of Law, where he graduated in 1992 with honors. He served a judicial clerkship under the late Franklin T. Dupree, Jr., who was the U.S. District Court Judge for the Eastern District of North Carolina. He has served as an associate with Jenner and Block in Chicago and with Everett Gaskins, Hancock, and Stevens. He has also served as a trial counsel for the North Carolina State Bar, and he is presently with Milberg, Gordon, and Stewart. Doug has served on the 10th Judicial District's Bar Professionalism Committee, as well as the Professionalism Award Committee of this bar. He has been on the Friends Committee of the North Carolina State Bar Lawyers Assistance Program, and he is presently a member of this association's Board of Directors. As you can see, Doug is active in several committees that advocate professionalism and civility among lawyers and in organizations that assist and support professionals suffering from mental health or substance abuse problems. He regularly writes articles for various publications, including the Bar Flyer, on issues of professional ethics, discipline, and liability, and also frequently lectures in consulting professional education seminars on such topics. Doug.
Good afternoon. John, that video is a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. I've known Ed since I first started practicing law with Judge Dupree back in the early 90s, and it's my privilege to be involved in the presentation of the Professionalism Award to Ed here today. It would be impossible for me in about 5 minutes to try to tell you all the reasons that I think Ed deserves this award. So my brief remarks here today are going to focus on one of the very important aspects of Ed's professionalism, and that is his longtime commitment and dedication to the mentoring and teaching of young lawyers. Throughout his career, Ed has taken a personal and interest in the professional development of the younger members of the bar, and he has consistently taken the time and made the effort to teach young lawyers about all the things that are involved in the practice of law. And that has included many things, from relatively simple things like how to professionally interact with clients, with other lawyers, with members of the judiciary, to the more complicated issues about how exactly do you conduct a deposition or argue a motion or try a case. He also repeatedly takes time to sit down and teach lawyers how to analyze a case strategically, and even some of the business aspects of practicing law. And he does that not just with the lawyers in his firm, and I think this is significant, but he's done it throughout with law students who have come through his firm. He does it with lawyers who are working as co-counsel with him on cases, and he does it even when it's appropriate with opposing lawyers. And I think to give you an example of the type of thing that he has done, when you come back from a hearing with him, if you're working with him as a younger lawyer or any significant event, virtually the first question he asks you almost every time is, okay, he'll look at the younger lawyer and say, what did you learn from that experience? And then he will engage you in sometimes, if it's appropriate, a lengthy conversation about that to make sure that you have gotten out of that experience what you should have gotten out and that you develop professionally. And I think by taking that time consistently over the years to teach young lawyers, he has not only contributed to their professional development, but really has maintained the professionalism of the bar in general by keeping those standards. Over the past couple of weeks, I have talked with a number of lawyers like myself that Ed has mentored over the years. And those lawyers are spread out from Wake County, all throughout Wake County, and even all over the state. And I wanted to take the last few minutes just to share with you some of the things that all of us have taken from or learned from our experiences with Ed. I think the thing that came up most commonly in those discussions was that Ed really has a core set of principles and values that govern everything he does. As some of you may know, when his firm was started back in 1990, they adopted a set of written principles, and those principles have governed the firm throughout its existence. And the first and last principle in that list are the same, and it reads as follows: conduct yourself personally and professionally consistent with the highest ethical standards. There is no substitute for integrity. And I think he has lived by those words and has made sure that the firm has lived by those words throughout his existence. One of the things that's always impressed me about Ed is that he never loses sight of those principles, no matter what the situation or what the context. Another thing that came up frequently was his attitude and enthusiasm. Ed loves the practice of law. He really enjoys handling very complex, thorny business disputes that oftentimes involve very challenging clients, which frankly a lot of us, I think, probably dread. But Ed really enjoys those, and he throws himself into them. And his enthusiasm for the practice is really contagious for everybody around him. He brings out the best in everybody that that is involved with that matter, whether it be the lawyers that he's working with in his firm, or the clients that he's representing, or even in most cases the opposing lawyer. And I think that has a significant impact on the professionalism among the bar. Another thing that was mentioned very commonly was his zealousness or tenacity in representing clients. Once, for those of you who know, you'll appreciate this, once Ed becomes convinced that he is right about something, he will find a way to convince you that he is right, and nothing will dissuade him or distract him from that position. And I think that's something he has really imparted and given all of us as we go forward in our legal careers, that don't give up if you're right and you're convinced you're right. Charge ahead. And I think probably the most significant thing for all of us is the wonderful role model that Ed has been for us. And that's, in addition to all the things I've already mentioned, it includes things such as his service to the community. I don't know how many of you happened to see the article in the News and Observer a couple of months ago about Ed and his involvement, particularly in the Hayes-Barton Baptist Church, but it was a wonderful article, and it really captured Ed's involvement in the community outside the legal field. He's also, it seems, every role he's in, he ends up, or every situation he's in, he ends up in the leadership role. And he just is a natural born leader and sort of rises to that regardless of the circumstances. He also has always been willing to take on and champion very deserving clients or causes regardless of the financial implications. And I think perhaps most significantly, he does all these things without seeking any kind of reward or recognition, but simply because he believes those things are the right things and he believes in them. In talking with the other folks, I think probably the best example I heard was from a lawyer who worked with Ed about 10 years ago, and he said that he now manages his own firm. And he said that even after 10 years, having been gone from Ed and really only having worked with him for a very relatively short period of time, he patterns his whole management style after Ed. And when he is thinking about a legal issue, he thinks to himself, what would Ed do in this circumstance? And I think that's a great testament to the lasting implications and significance that Ed has had on many different people, not just that one individual. I think simply put, Ed is the type of lawyer that all of us ought to aspire to be. And I think for those of us who know Ed very well, it's what's so funny about the video that we saw for the Professionalism Support, because nothing could be further from the truth. I thought it was important that you see a more accurate picture of what Ed is like on a day-to-day basis. So in conspiracy with some of the folks in the office, we shot a picture last week of Ed with his, I guess, apparently his most recent mentee. I guess he's having to get them kind of early these days to make sure they're still willing to listen to him. But I want to close by saying, Ed, in all seriousness, on behalf of all the lawyers that you've mentored over the years, and really on behalf of the entire bar, for making the Wake County Bar Association one of the best and most professional, and probably most significantly, for ensuring that it will continue to be that for several more generations. We thank you and we congratulate you on this very well-deserved recognition.
Our next speaker is Hugh Stevens, who has worked with Ed for over 30 years. Hugh is a graduate of the University of North Carolina, where he served as co-editor of the Daily Tar Heel. He is also a graduate of the UNC School of Law, and he graduated in 1968 from there, and for 4 years after graduation, he served in the Navy as a JAG officer. He's both a nationally known First Amendment and media lawyer and an experienced litigator. For more than 20 years, Hugh served as general counsel to the North Carolina Press Association, which designated him as counsel emeritus upon his retirement in 2002. In 2003, the association honored Hugh by selecting him to receive its W.C. Lassiter Award in recognition of his zealous defense of the First Amendment. He continues to serve as counsel to the North Carolina Press Association and several North Carolina newspapers, including the News and Observer. I got to get either brighter lights or bigger print. He has also taught First Amendment law and policy at Duke University's Terry Sanford Institute of Public Policy, the University of North Carolina School of Law, and the UNC School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Hugh.
Thank you, John. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to speak on behalf of my longtime friend and colleague. As John said, when I got out of the Navy in 1973, I came to Wake County to practice law, and for 30 of the 31 years since, I have practiced law with Ed. This has been both a curse and a blessing. It's been a curse because Ed has an affinity for firm retreats and other tortuous forms of self-analysis. Early on, he managed to schedule most of them on weekends when my children were sick. Lately, he seems to set them at the times of year when golf weather is at its absolute best. Ed thinks that the Myers-Briggs inventory is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, Ed, after 30 years, you finally persuaded me to take it, but you couldn't persuade me to answer it honestly, so. On the whole, it's been a great blessing and joy to practice law with Ed, not the least because he's the kind of managing partner who puts together a budget every year and then brings it in within 1% of the projections, at least on the expense side. Ed, could you work a little harder on the income side next year? Ed would actually prefer that I continue in a kind of humorous vein today, but there are a couple of problems with that. First of all, I think this is an inherently serious occasion because we are honoring not only Ed, but the profession and the legacy of Chief Justice Branch, for which we are so grateful. The other reason is that I don't think Ed is very funny. Now, what I mean by that is that Ed doesn't tell jokes or funny stories like, say, Wade Smith does. In 30 years, I don't remember hearing Ed tell a joke, at least not successfully. In fact, he despises lawyer jokes, which happen to be among the ones that I like the best. But that's not to say that he's not good-humored. As you could see from the photograph that Doug put up, he likes to have fun. He loves to dance. I don't know where he learned because he was an undergraduate at Wake Forest. But in addition to Halloween, he likes other holidays a lot too. In his Lakestone Drive neighborhood, he's famous for an annual 4th of July picnic that features an astonishing array of illegal fireworks. He once commandeered my car to take him to South Carolina to purchase the fireworks, and he's probably the only lawyer in Raleigh who gets a Christmas card every year from the Dillon, South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. One year, he actually launched a skyrocket all the way across the lake and set fire to Jim Hart's roof. All kidding aside, we are here to honor Ed for his service and his professionalism. John's article in the Bar Flyer, which I hope all of you have read, describes his many ways in which he's provided long and varied service to the bar, and rightly so, because as Doug said, Ed loves being a lawyer, he loves being with lawyers, and he truly believes that the law is a noble profession and a high calling. At the same time, he's not uncritical of the profession. And he's not afraid to challenge its conventional wisdom when he thinks it's wrong. Long before it was fashionable, Ed pushed his colleagues to welcome minorities and women into the profession, to make quality of life a higher priority than billable hours, and to raise the status and pay of the paralegals, administrative assistants, receptionists, and other support staff without whom we couldn't open the doors every day, much less be successful. And he has always made sure that all of us did the proper thing by our families, no matter what was tugging at us in the law office. On several occasions, Ed has actually challenged the powers that be themselves when he believed that they were acting inappropriately. I'm thinking particularly of instances, several of them, when Ed has represented, usually with no pay, lawyers whose credentials or abilities or character were challenged by the Board of Bar Examiners. I'd like to tell you in closing about one of them. Diane was a young woman with a diagnosed learning disability. Even though her high school guidance counselor suggested that she go to truck driving school, she enrolled instead at UNCG, where she graduated Phi Beta Kappa. Then she went to and graduated from one of our state's law schools and took the bar exam. Like all the applicants, she waited anxiously for the letter that would tell her whether she had passed or not. Instead, she received a letter saying that her exam results had been sealed because the bar examiners had questions about her ability and fitness to practice law. Her own attempts to overcome the bar's doubts were unsuccessful, and she was actually declared unfit to receive a law license. At that point, she sought Ed's help. He discovered that Diane's law license had been denied for two reasons. First, she had disclosed on her application that she had received psychological counseling about her disability. Second, she had accumulated a significant amount of credit card debt while attending law school and studying for the bar. Apparently, the board's position was that applicants who have attention deficits may be prone to neglect their professional responsibilities, and those who enter the profession under a heavy debt load may be more susceptible to dishonesty or mishandling of client funds. Ed fought for Diane for more than a year. Among other things, the board refused to accept the findings of her psychiatrist, who was familiar with her case, instead insisting that she be examined by a psychiatrist of their choosing. Ultimately, under Ed's dogged persistence and marshaling of the evidence, the board relented, and Diane received her license. If time permitted, I could tell you other similar stories in which Ed has gone to bat for people whom he viewed as the victims of discrimination because of their race or their religion or other factors. Now, if you want to be popular in some quarters, I would suggest that taking on the Board of Bar Examiners is not precisely the thing to do. But Ed didn't represent Diane to be liked. As far as I can tell, he did it for the same reason that he does everything he does every day, because he thought it was the right thing to do. Is there any higher definition of professionalism? Thank you.
Ed, would you please come forward? On behalf of the Professionalism Award Committee and the Wake County Bar Association, it is my distinct privilege and honor to present you with the 2004 Joseph Branch Professionalism Award.
I tell you, it's even more humbling than I thought it would be. I've been here for each of the 13 awards that preceded me. And I know each of the prior recipients professionally and most of them personally. And it really is humbling to be considered by you as worthy to join that group. I'll tell you, too, this award has particular significance to me because it has Joe Branch's name attached to it. He and I attended the same church for a number of years, and I had the opportunity to watch Judge Branch very closely. And he is one of the folks that I count as my mentors, although some would observe that I didn't learn very well from him. If some of you didn't have the opportunity to know Judge Branch, but those of you did know that he was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. I frequently speak, and most of the time nobody pays any attention at all. But I still try to emulate Judge Branch. I want to recognize a couple of folks without whose help I would not be here today. First, my senior partner of almost 40 years, Ann. Without her constant advice and guidance, I surely would not be here. Obviously, my parents, who literally are responsible for me being here and who gave me the foundation upon which all else was built. My friend Van Langston, who sits here today, you can have mentors who are non-lawyers as well. In fact, I read the letter that Van wrote to the committee. Van is one of my closest friends. Van, thank you for telling them what they wanted to hear rather than the truth. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the comments of Doug and Hugh. Some of what they said was true. Some of it sounded like a description of someone else. Mentors are very important. There are two sitting here today who played a significant role in my career. Robinson Everett, who I first met when I was a student at Duke. I never thought, you think about it. Did you ever think that you would end up being in the same law firm partnership as one of your professors in law school? And particularly a remarkable one like Robinson Everett. And then about 25 years ago, I encountered a lawyer who obviously realized that I needed serious help, particularly in figuring out how to try a case. And for some reason, Charlie Blanchard kind of latched on to me and has been trying to teach me for those 25 years how to do it, and I still haven't gotten it right yet. And in particular, I can't walk like Charlie. I do want to say one thing to you that is serious. I think we have some serious challenges as a profession, and one of those serious challenges is with public perception. I was sitting at a meeting at the Bar Center last week, and I looked up on the wall. We were in the Sam Irwin conference room. And sitting up there on the wall was this quote from Sam Irwin. "The founding fathers left us with a delicate government, which if maintained in proper balance will ensure freedom for generations to come. The vigilance that freedom demands must be provided by each and every citizen, and especially by those of us who know and love the law." And of course, he was referring to lawyers as those of us who know and love the law. I don't believe the words greedy and trial lawyers go together. That adjective simply does not describe the trial lawyers that I've known over the 38 years of law practice. It's one thing for non-lawyers to describe a segment of us in a certain way. It's quite another thing for us to do it to ourselves. Because if we demean one of us, in the public perception, we demean all of us. It seems to me, too, that it's not fair to suggest that a jury of our fellow citizens under the guidance of a competent judge can't be trusted to reach a fair decision based on the facts presented to them. My experience in 38 years as a trial lawyer, and I don't try personal injury cases or medical malpractice. Most of my matters are business matters, but I believe in the jury system. My experience teaches me that that jury, under the guidance of a competent judge, is more likely to get it right than the General Assembly or Congress, passing a one-size-fits-all rule that circumscribes the ability of that judge and jury to render justice. Now, in my firm, of course, we respect the First Amendment, and I know everybody has a right to express themselves. And I recognize that other lawyers may have a different view. But it seems to me that we need to be responsible in expressing that view so we do not distort and mislead the public about this noble profession and about what is an imperfect, but still the best we know how to make it, justice system. Now, I'm not suggesting we can't make it better, and indeed I'm thinking we can, and I think we as lawyers must speak out to do that. But I think we must be responsible when we do it, and I don't think stepping in the political arena excuses us as professionals from saying it correctly and not distorting it. In fact, if anything, I think there's a higher obligation. We ought to be the leaders in making the legal system better. And frankly, one way we could make it better, and everybody in this room knows it, is to put some more financial resources in that particular branch of government. But I preached enough. I'll just tell you that I stand here today humbled and honored and privileged to be counted along with you as one of those who knows and loves the law.
Thank you, Ed, for your comments. I think without a doubt the committee made the right choice this year. I failed to indicate that John was the chair of the Professionalism Award Committee. It was a very wonderful group of people that were considered this year, and you know, Ed was such a wonderful choice for the award. I'm lucky because I count myself as one of his mentees. We had a very messy case a few years ago. Remember that one, Ed? And I learned a lot from Ed as well. We just have a few announcements, and then we...
Who is it?